Hello there. Welcome to English with Lina. As I may know, and probably most people might know, the IELTS reading test might be challenging according to some people. Are you aiming for that band 9, the reading? So, you have come to the right place. Today, we're gonna break down the secrets to get the perfect score in the IELTS reading. Well, let's dive in and discover how you can become an IELTS reading champion. So, let's come to the first part. We need to familiarize ourselves with the test format. In the IELTS reading section, it will consist of 3 passages with 40 question types in total. So the question types might include multiple choice, true false not given, or yes no not given, matching headings, sentence completion, summary completion, and finally, short answer questions. So, why do you need to understand the test format? By understanding the different questions that will appear in the test, you will know how to tackle each effectively. And you can try to develop your own strategies while understanding the test. And with that, you can also analyze your own weakness. So myself back then, I have developed myself some skills or even some strategies for each different question types. I have got here an example. So this is a reading passage in Cambridge IELTS 7, Test 1, Passage 2. This is a matching headings exercise. And we have here lots of headings and you have several passages which you need to find the suitable headings for each. Let's say I will give you a strategy on how to tackle this type of exercise. We have here from 1 until 11. So most of the time when you do the matching headings, the difficult thing is you need to analyze the differences between each headings so that you can find a suitable one. So in order to find the differences between each heading, you will need to group it. That is my strategy. So let's take into consideration which one can you group it together in order to show the differences. Let's take, for example, number 4 and number 11. So we have here, for number 4, we have irrigation system fall into disuse. And we have 11, a description of ancient water supplies. These both headings are talking about irrigation system or water supplies. So we can group them together in order to show the similarities between these two headings. And then you can underline the differences between them. For number 4, something will fall into disuse, while for 11, you have a description. So as you read, when the passage is talking about a description of something, which means something that is being described, you can use number 11, or otherwise you can choose number 4. Let's read the first passage. We can see a lot of keywords about at the height of the Roman Empire, 9 major systems with an innovative layout of pipes and well-built sewers, and a lots of other things in the past tense as well as in history. So you can see they're describing something like dams, they're talking about water resources, and everything is in the history of human civilization. So with that, it fits perfectly well with a description of ancient water supplies. Did they mention anything about something falling into disuse? No. So you can clearly choose 11 for paragraph A, and you can exclude another option for other passages. So by that way, you will do it quite like, I would say, faster or maybe easier for you as you can analyze which one is different from each other. Okay, and the same thing happened with true false not given and other types of exercise. So if you want to find out more about the strategies for each type of questions, stay tuned. You can receive some announcement in the future on English with Lina channel. So let's move on to the second one. Probably you have heard of 2 most popular reading techniques, skimming and scanning. So what are they? and how can they be used to get a high IELTS score, especially the IELTS reading math score. So for skimming, you need to read quickly for the general idea of the passage. You need to focus on the titles, on the subtitles, and the first and the last sentence of the paragraph. And the second one, scanning, you need to look for specific information such as names, dates, keywords related to the questions. And with that, as you can see, you will need to choose different type of reading techniques for each exercise. So for example, for skimming, which one do you think might need to use skimming? Probably matching headings, as you need to read quickly in order to get the general idea of each passage so that you can find the suitable headings, right? And for the scanning, maybe you can use that for filling the gap, something about summary completion. So with that, you can find the certain information that is needed for each gap in the questions. So that's why I would say that both techniques will help you locate the answer faster. And probably you would find it easier to just use this technique without having to read every word in detail. Let's come to another important part of the reading IELTS. So if you want to understand the passage, you will need to have quite good grasp of vocabulary. You need to develop vocabulary and synonym recognition. So a strong vocabulary is really crucial since the IELTS test often use synonyms, often use academic vocabulary in the questions. And sometimes you can find that synonym and how they would paraphrase it in the reading passage and in the questions as well. So for example, for the word fruitless, originally you know the word fruitless as something like it is not producing fruit. But as you can relate it to the reading passage, sometimes it would mean fail to achieve the desired goal. So because it might quite be the same, depending on the context. And if you understand that word and how you can relate it to the context, and if you can develop your vocabulary a bit, you would find it easier to solve the questions in the IELTS reading. And you can also practice paraphrasing sentences and recognize how ideas are being paraphrased in the reading test. So most of the time, people cannot find the answer because of how they paraphrase the words and even the structure. So I really recommend you to develop yourself a good knowledge of vocabulary and sentence structure. Next one, you will need to learn to manage your time. So you will have 60 minutes to complete 40 questions in total. So most people will say that would be impossible, but you need to do it anyway. And in the reading test, you will see that they often note something like spend no more than 20 minutes on each passage. So you would need to allocate your questions and allocate your time effectively so that you would not waste your time in the reading test. So if you are stuck on the questions, for example, you need to move on and then you might come back to it later. And don't waste time on difficult questions. And I also recommend that if you can, when you cannot come back to that questions, for example, try to think of any answer that you might get throughout the reading. So as you have read the reading passage, you might have a good guess of something that might be the correct answer. So trust your instinct and just write that down because it would be more likely for you to get the correct answer if you just write it down. If you let it be blank, of course, you would lose mark for that. So just write anything down if you cannot find the correct answer for that. There will be high chance that you would get it correct. Just try. So as I have mentioned before, you have different question types in the reading IELTS. And aside from matching headings, you would also find yes, no, not given, and true, false, not given difficult as well. So be careful with this type of questions. And I believe that many people would find this exercise really daunting. So you would need to understand how true, false, not given, and yes, no, not given functions in the real test. How would they ask you? So remember, so true or yes, it means that the statement matches the information in the text. as well as false or no. The statement will contradict the information in the text and not given. Simply, it is not being confirmed or denied in the text. So everything would appear in the reading passage itself. You don't need to guess. You don't need to use your own knowledge to answer those type of questions. And I believe that is also why most people would get it incorrect, because they often base on their knowledge instead of just relying on the reading passage. So when it is mentioned, you need to analyze whether it is true, false, or yes, no. And if you cannot find the information in the text, likely you would find it mentioned, but not the question itself. It is not given. It's simply as that, and don't complicate yourself. And you would always need to find the evidence in the passage to justify your answer. Okay, so after doing all of them, after you have already developed a good grasp of vocabulary, and as well as being able to understand different types of questions, what do you need to do? So finally, you will need to practice reading complex passages, such as academic articles to start with, and answering questions within a strict time limit. You can also use official IELTS reading materials to get familiar with the type of questions, as well as being able to time yourself in the real context in the test. So next, it might be ignored by most people, but I really recommend all of you to improve your reading skill in general. So not only do you need to practice the IELTS reading, but you also need to read other types of reading materials. For example, stories, novels, articles, anything that you can read, and try to develop your own comprehension skill. So with that, you can familiarize yourself with the reading, and that you would find it less daunting and less challenging to face the reading in the real test. So as you can see, most reading passage in the test would be really, really long. And if you get used to reading the types of reading materials that are close in the same length as the one in the reading test, you would find it much more easier, and you might feel like calm. So you can stay calm during the real test. And finally, which is the most important, and I often recommend all of you to do it, is that please don't cram yourself before the reading exam. So, what do I mean by don't cram yourself? You would wonder. You need to practice as much as possible in order to prepare for the reading? No. Before the reading test, you can start by just doing one test every 2 days. And the thing is, after finishing each test, you need to correct yourself. You need to review the mistakes in your practice test. So after practicing, carefully analyze your mistakes. Why did you get it wrong? Try to understand their logic and how would you apply their logic into your reading strategies. And understanding why you answer questions incorrectly will help you avoid making similar mistakes in the future. So try to correct yourself. Try to improve your own mistakes so that you can find it easier to apply the logic of the IELTS into the real reading test. And finally, try to stay calm and focused. So in the real test, the thing that might deter you from performing well is because you cannot be able to stay calm. Try to focus on the reading and try to take a deep breath every now and then when you do the reading so that you can try to pick up even like some small details in the reading, because you can only do that when you are calm. And confidence plays a big role in maintaining accuracy under time pressure. So try to stay calm and focus. As I have already shared to all of you, those are my strategies on achieving Band 9 in the IELTS reading. So I don't know whether you would apply my advice or whether it would be effective for every one of you. But if you can take it as an advice and try to apply it in your own way so that you can achieve a high score in the IELTS reading. So if you happen to get a high score in the IELTS reading, thanks to what I have shared, please comment later. And please stay tuned for other videos on YouTube English with Lina. See you later.